Hello everyone, I'm Shannon Cantner and you're watching a special CMSD-TV program featuring District CEO Eric Gordon. We're sitting down with him for a Q&A about the 2016-2017 school year. Thanks so much for being here in the CMSD-TV studios.
Great to see you, Shannon.
Good to see you too. Well, every school year is different, particularly in a district that has undergone as much change as this one under the Cleveland plan. The second quarter is here for the 2016-2017 school year. What do you see that's different so far?
I don't know that I would say different this year. I would say we had a really tremendous first quarter, and that what was different is we weren't starting a whole bunch of new stuff as we went through a lot of change, but that we were actually building on the momentum of the last several years. And so we had a really smooth school opening. We've had a great first quarter. We're into second quarter. Kids are working hard. Teachers are working hard. We're off to a great start.
Students probably expecting their own report cards pretty soon, but let's talk about CMSD's latest report card, which was released in September. Can you kind of put the report card in perspective for us, break it down? What were some of those positive results that we saw, and how might some of the other results shape strategy for the district?
I think first of all we have to just acknowledge that state report cards across Ohio went down in the best performing districts and those of us that are struggling to catch up. And so what that says to us is that we have not yet met the new learning standards that our kids deserve to learn. And I stress not yet because our kids deserve to learn at those high standards and we're not there yet. But when you dig into what's behind that report card, there's a whole series of positive things happening in the district. And I always tend to think of the littlest kid to the biggest kid. So if we think about our preschoolers, we have 1,200 more seats available for preschool education than we had just 4 years ago. And 80% of the kids who go to those preschool come to kindergarten ready to learn. That's a huge win for us. It used to be 50%. When we get to the third grade reading guarantee, which is Ohio's guarantee that children will be ready for fourth grade reading, 85% of our students pass that guarantee, and that places us ahead of Canton, Cincinnati, and Toledo. When we think about the national movement on 4th and 8th grade reading and math, we were one of 3 districts in the country who moved on all 4 of those subjects, while we saw the state of Ohio and the United States actually go down. When we get to graduation rate, our graduation rate is up 17% in the last 5 years. That's one of the fastest improvements in the state of Ohio. And then when kids go on to college, and more than half of our kids go to a 2-year or 4-year college, we're seeing that they are 10% less likely to need remedial English or remedial math. So they're learning, graduating more, and doing better at the same time. The Plain Dealer itself in September acknowledged us as the 15th fastest growing or fastest improving district in Ohio. There are 609 districts, so 15 out of 609, that puts us in the top 2.5%. So there's a huge amount of positive inside of that report card, even though we haven't yet met the standards that we know our kids can and should meet.
Lots of gains that you just went through there, including attendance and enrollment that increased last year. I know it's probably early in the school year at this point, but what are the indicators showing? Are those continuing to improve and increase?
Well, so last year our attendance was up 1.5%, and chronic absenteeism, which is what we care most about, was down 6.3%. Enrollment, we've had the second year of increased enrollment, 1,100 students over the last 2 years, and we believe that may be the first enrollment increase since desegregation and forced busing. And again, our numbers early in this year show that we have yet more kids than we expected in the fall. So both of those are also good indicators of the health of the district.
That's great. Overall, it sounds like a very positive start to the school year. In our last conversation, we spoke about the pros and cons of the federal government's new Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. Has the district reached any recommendations for the state regarding implementation there?
We have submitted recommendations actually to the federal government about how the accountability system should be created. That would be what would be the new report card. And also about what assessments we should use, and talking about tackling this issue of overuse of testing. We're right now working on a recommendation around something called supplement, not supplant, which means how does federal dollars get merged into state and local dollars, and we'll be submitting those regulations as well. We're still focused at the federal level because the federal level is still making the rules, but we're prepared, and actually right before we met I was working with the team on what are we going to recommend explicitly for Ohio. And we're going to continue to really advocate for urban children, minority children, children in poverty, because that's where ESSA is focused, and that means focused on Cleveland.
That's great. You were recently, it sounds like you're a busy man, obviously, but you were recently invited to join the highly regarded Chiefs for Change, a relatively new nationwide organization made up of state and district education leaders who seek to have influence on national education policy, which we were kind of just talking about. So what will be your priorities in this new role?
Well, I'm joining Chiefs for Change particularly so that it can help me be fully educated on how to implement ESSA effectively. ESSA is the new No Child Left Behind, and for those of us who have been in the field, that was a generation of children from when they were in kindergarten till after they graduated, and the same thing's going to be true for ESSA. And so Chiefs for Change gives me access to the state leaders and other district leaders across the country to find out what they're doing to meet this. And so I'm very, very interested in what new kinds of assessments might look like that can replace the testing system we have. I'm very interested in equity and how we ensure that all kids have access to great teachers and the resources that go around that, which this group's studying. And I'm also interested in innovative teaching, blended learning models that might be implemented as we continue to think about our portfolio and the different ways that kids learn. And all of those are topics that Chiefs for Change are exploring together.
Well, we can't wait to hear more about your experiences there as we continue to have more discussions like this in the studio. But finally, the election is right around the corner. We won't get into all the presidential politics, but voters do have a very critical decision to make besides that on November 8th. The district's renewal levy, issue 108. What is it? What do you want the public to know? And what has been the response so far that you've gotten from the community?
Yeah, so issue 108 is a renewal of the tax issue we passed in 2012. It expires this December, and we're asking the public to renew it with no increase, so it won't increase taxes, but to give us 4 more years. Based on those achievements that we talked about earlier, we believe that we have evidence that the levy dollars have mattered, and that in 4 years the public will again get to judge whether we should continue the work. So it remains accountable for us to the public. It is $65 million annually, which is about 10% of our budget, and so it is what has allowed us to prevent layoffs and class size increases and some of the things we've experienced in the past. So in a nutshell, it is a 4-year renewal. It does not raise taxes. It allows us to continue to meet the progress indicators that I've talked with you about. So far, as I've been visiting in the community, people have been very gracious and kind, and I'm hopeful that we will see a positive answer on Election Day for issue 108.
Great, thank you. Helpful information, I'm sure, for all the voters out there. Anything else that you want to touch on today?
No, I mean, these are the key issues going on in the district. Of course, we've got kids in classrooms learning with their teachers every day. That's got to stay our primary focus as all of this other work comes together.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being in the studio with us today. We look forward to the next visit. And in the meantime, of course, everyone can follow you on Twitter. Eric Gordon, CEO, very active, posting lots of great pictures and updates all the time. So thank you so much for tuning in. And for more CMSD-TV programming, you can visit the CMSD News Bureau website at clevelandmetroschools.org/news. We'll see you next time.